we are going to move forward with our next section, cybersecurity, with Carlos Felix. And just a little bit about Carlos. He works with the APA IT department to ensure that auditors have the IT resources they need to identify and eliminate risks to public resources, thus protecting the taxpayers' interest in our government. Carlos previously led the enterprise storage team at the Commonwealth Office of Technology and has served the Commonwealth in various IT roles for over 18 years. Currently, he is our Director of Information Technology, and he is a graduate of KSU, Kentucky State, with a bachelor's in computer science. Carlos, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you, sir.
All right, just want to verify my slideshow is full, correct?
Yes, sir. See it all the way.
All right, that works. So thank you for the introduction. I just want to focus a little bit on IT security, and specifically, Glenn couldn't have ended on a better note when he actually talked about backups, because that's something you'll hear me talk a lot about. So essentially everything we're going to do is going to be focused on the security side. A little background information, as Jonathan said, I have worked with the state for about 20 years now in various IT roles, small and large agencies, and kind of came to this one, which is the smallest agency I've been in, with the large agency mindset. In my last job, I had a $10 million budget that I managed across several billing rates. And if there was any kind of problem, a need, I would be able to see it, basically figure out how we're going to pay for it and what we need to charge, and then go ahead and buy it. But realistically, that doesn't work for a lot of small agencies like us. So now I've kind of adopted a good enough mindset as far as getting the best thing that you can within your budget. And that's essentially what we're going to focus on for you, especially as new officials. You may just need to start hitting the high points. I don't go into products too often, but when I do, it's not any specific representation of the APA. So in the theme of focusing on your data, I want to look at some examples of threats to your data. You have external threats, user frustration, tech degradation, and mistakes. Now, a lot of times when we think of external threats and hackers, we think like Russian spy or something like that. In reality, there are a lot of just servers and machines that have been hooked up by someone who wants to scan for open ports and ends up possibly damaging someone by doing some kind of hacking situation. And it usually ends up being a brute force thing, but it can cause problems. Doesn't always have to be like that, though. I mean, in some cases, we've had floods and lightning storms take down our building and in various other situations. So external threats can be anything outside of the server. User frustration. One of the other threats to your data is just being frustrated with security. There's a concept in technology, Maya, the most advanced yet acceptable. Now, if tomorrow there was a phone on the market that you had to implant a chip in your head and basically make video calls by thinking after doing the surgery, you'd say, nope. Kind of works the same way in security. If we told you the only way that you could secure your computer and your data is to put it in a vault and then end up getting a blood sample every time you want to get something, you just give up on security. So what we want to do is we want to look at security, but we don't want to make such big hoops, so many hoops that you jump through that you just ignore it altogether. Tech degradation. So a lot of times we don't like to think of computers like cars, but in reality they are. There's moving parts within them, and eventually those parts can go bad. So the big thing there is we want to make sure that we have backups and things of that nature, that when they do go bad, the failure isn't disastrous. And in the same vein, mistakes. Sometimes you may spill your coffee on a server, and that's a really expensive mistake. But if you don't have backups, that's an even worse mistake. I mean, mistakes don't have to be irreversible, but in some cases they are. So let's try to solve that. The solution is 3 simple steps. Just because they're simple doesn't mean that they're going to be easy. We're going to secure your data, you're going to back up your data, and you're going to transfer your data securely. So essentially the first part is going to kind of go over how to keep your data safe from others. Backing up your data is my favorite part. It's how to recover when things really, really go bad. And Glenn was very optimistic when he talked about same day installs and getting things back up and running. If you're doing that, you're doing really, really well. And then ultimately, how to send data safely to others. So there's a lot of elements of security, but what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on 3. And any application or hardware, anything that you buy could potentially cover one of those or all 3 of those elements of security. There's some applications out there like McAfee that will allow you to secure your machines, and it also does some backups. There are some things that do the backups and the transfers. They'll transfer to, say, the cloud. There's some that will do all 3. In some cases, you may want the best product for all 3 and you buy 3 different products. But essentially, if you try to focus on these 3 points, you're going to be in a pretty good place. So let's delve a little bit on securing your data. Easy places for improvement if you have no idea where to start. 1, have a password. I mean, even if you're a small office, having a password on your machine is important. And if there are several people sharing a machine, each person should have their own account and their own password. Even if you have access to similar data and have permissions, ultimately what ends up happening is, say, you don't know who deleted something. If you actually have, say, 4 different users and all 4 have a different account, there are certain logs that will show that X person ended up deleting something. We'll say Bob. And, well, then we have to go to Bob and kind of figure out what the deal is and why that happened. But you want to make sure that you have some controls in place to make sure that your data is secure. The other thing, try to make it a semi-difficult password. So in Bob's case, don't use Bob is great as your password. Look for newer versions. So maybe some of the software you can upgrade for free. There was a time there when Windows 10 users had the ability to go Windows 11 for free, and you were just able to hit upgrade. Now, there's some cases where you can't do that, but for the most part, the newer versions are more secure and they get a lot more security updates. So there's a case where you can have a security upgrade for free. Virus protection. If you're using Windows, and most people are, in a lot of cases, it's got a pretty good built-in virus protection. You can actually hit the Windows key and start typing virus, and you'll see virus and threat protection pop up on your screen. If you go in there and make sure it's turned on, then that threat center will actually allow you to make sure that you are secure. Now, if there's a case where you're looking at virus protection or you're looking at backup software, I would always end up going for the backup software. Virus protection, at this point, viruses are very, very rare. Malware and some of those things, ransomware, they do happen, but the best way to recover those is usually from backups. So given the chance, backups. And then common scams. If you end up getting emails that say something along like, hey, free basketball tickets, just delete it. If there's something that makes it seem unnecessarily urgent about a compromised password, no, don't do it. Delete the email. If it says your Microsoft account was deleted or was compromised, you can always delete the email and then go to Microsoft.com, log in, and change your password there. But never do it through the email that was sent, because a lot of times it can be a phishing scam. All right. Now, in my opinion, the most important part, backing up your data. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, but right now, I would go for whatever quick, dirty method you have if you have nothing. An acceptable solution now is better than a great solution next month. So backups and backup methods at a glance. Just want to give you some ideas. One, if you have just a very, very small footprint, maybe you could use a USB drive and then have that, lock it up somewhere and use that to recover from if you're just talking files. Maybe you can do something like back up your computers in the cloud or back up your files in the cloud. And then there's things like ghosting that you might have heard of, basically disk imaging. It'll like clone the whole computer all at once, and that file can go somewhere. It can go into like a USB drive or cloud storage. So when you meld all those things together, you can kind of have a hybrid method, and it's just a little bit of everything. But no matter what it is, you want to make sure you have backups. So for some research, I think first thing you want to do is you want to look at your budget. What is it worth to you to ensure you don't lose everything? And once you kind of decide that with a number in mind, you make sure that you won't get caught up chasing the best. Essentially, if you go in and you start looking at these sites, reviewers basically review the high-end things all the time, and you'll keep getting pushed to a higher and higher price point. So have an idea in mind, and you can probably find something to meet that budget. Remember, having something is better than having nothing. I've got some links that will be coming up in the presentation when this gets sent out. Go ahead and do some research. Transferring your data. So there are going to be times where you need to send files from your location to another location securely. We always want to strive for this. So there are a couple of different ways to do that, or a few. If you are all essentially in the global and possibly using, say, COT's email, then secure email through COT's Office 365 might be the best for you. You can encrypt an email, send it, and it's secure and has been tested. For other agencies or people running their own web servers, you might have to do something different, but there are some other options out there for you. You could do something like put it on a USB drive and drive it to someone, and that's always convenient until you try to, I don't know, stop somewhere and you end up dropping it at a rest stop or at a McDonald's. And then you have different things like Dropbox, Google Drive, cloud storage, and some managed file transfer softwares. Move It, any of these old school FTP software, they actually exist out there. Go Anywhere, MFT is an example, and Through. So look at some of those products and see what works from a cost perspective. A lot of the vendors will give you free trials. You can kind of see how they work and see if it'll work for your agency. And then ultimately, we're gonna figure out how are we gonna do all this. I mean, I've tossed backups at you, I've tossed various things at you, but let's see how we can actually do it. So I prefer the phased approach. Improving security is going to be a constant process. I'd say in a similar way where maybe you'll have some findings one year on an audit, you end up correcting those, and then maybe there's a reduced subsection of findings or a couple of new ones because you over-adjusted. We kind of want to do the same thing with security. So phase one is just to look at your current security and see what the issues are. And start going through, resolve the most critical issues first, and use any of the free options you can to pull up those issues. If there are any larger obstacles, go ahead and purchase hardware or software to overcome those. Phase two is, hey, the bulk of the things are corrected. Let's see how they're working for me. 6 months down the line, you can kind of reevaluate and decide whether or not some products are working, some aren't. If it's like a monthly cost basis, you might be able to cut them, and you just adjust accordingly. And make sure you make plans to resolve any remaining issues that were outstanding and budget for your security. Then the third phase is basically you're up to date, but at that point you're in a phase where you're constantly having to dedicate a portion of your budget and your time to review upcoming issues. Make sure that maybe you get a tech newsletter, something that shows the products that you have, what security holes are in those, and try to get those corrected. So these are some of the additional resources. I would definitely go through there. It's a beginner's guide to PC backup, external hard drives, and cloud backups. And all of them have been recently updated. They are websites that kind of do a yearly review of their stuff. And then in summary, just want to kind of go over the phases a little bit. I mean, one, start small. Make sure you look at everything you have, you knock out what you can, and really try to shore up your security. Two, once you get there, just continue to evaluate your needs. Make sure everything is steady, does what it needs. If you have the ability to run some tests, then obviously do that. And three, take the necessary actions when the situation calls for it. If suddenly your software isn't working and doing what you need, go ahead and get some new software, and hopefully you budget it accordingly. But security doesn't have to be scary. You can start small, and like I said, anything is better than nothing.